All right, here we are looking at year-over-year numbers yet again. The absolute peak of the Kelowna and Central Okanagan market came in March of 2022. Benchmark sales price back then was a whopping $1.173 million. A year later, in March of 2023, that pricing had dropped down to $999,500. And here we are yet another year later looking at March of 2024 numbers, and we see yet another drop in that benchmark price. We're now down to $986,600. Now that's a 16% drop from the absolute peak of 2022 and a slight drop of 2.3% from March of 23. All right, so what's happening? Is the market still correcting? Will we continue to see a massive drop off in prices in Kelowna? And when will be the best time to buy and on the flip side sell? So let's get into it. But before I do, I gotta ask you to go ahead and hit that like button, share this video with someone that you think would appreciate it, and make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so that you know the next time that we upload a video to our channel. Okay, so like I've said in previous videos, the year-over-year pricing will give you an indication of where things were, but won't necessarily paint a picture of where we are headed. Now, case in point, I mentioned prices were down 2.3% since last year, right? Well, if we look at the beginning of this year, you'll notice that the benchmark price is only down 0.4%. In fact, we saw a bit of a bump in February due in part to the low number of sales under the $800,000 price point and a few other higher price points selling that month to pull the numbers up. So the first quarter of this year has seen a less than a half a percentage point drop in pricing. Now, it's not exactly the sell-off and massive correction that some have been saying is still coming. Sales are still way off from last year. We're down about 15% in the first quarter of this year compared to Q1 of 2023. Now, sales are off because this province has lost well over 70,000 residents over the course of the last year, due in large part to affordability. Interest rates certainly aren't helping things either, and I believe a lot of buyers are waiting for rates to correct and hoping for a slight correction in the market. Now, I was at a conference about 2 weeks ago, and I spoke to a lot of brokers and a lot of agents from around the province, and most of their markets are very similar to what we're seeing here in Kelowna. Sluggish, to say the least. So as long as affordability continues to be a determining factor in the high cost of living here, we will continue to see an out-migration as a factor affecting our market. Now, the average days on market for the first quarter of this year was a surprising 58.4. Again, I don't know that I believe that these stats put out by our association because this doesn't take into account the listing history of each property. Realtors in this market will pull a property off and relist it within days so that it comes out looking like a new listing. Now, the counter resets and the days on market actually goes back to zero. Now, without going all the way through the 716 listings that sold over the last quarter and looking at the history, my gut feeling is that the actual number is likely 30 to 50% higher than that. Now, we're still firmly planted in a buyer's market with 11.7 months of supply in the single family sector. I don't see this going anywhere at this point. Sales are going to continue to be a grind. And I mean, we're already into the spring market and we aren't seeing as much of an uptick as we would normally see this time of year. As mentioned, interest rates are holding steady and it's not looking as though the Bank of Canada is going to be dropping them anytime soon. So that really answers the questions around interest rates from earlier. Now, is the market still correcting? I think it really depends on who you talk to. My read right now is that things have flattened out a little earlier than I had actually expected them to. But I am holding true to my prediction at the beginning of this year, which was that we would see about a 5% drop in the single family sector towards the end of this year. Now, the trend that we're seeing suggests a drop of 1.2% by the end of this calendar year. But if we continue to see sales in the lower price points and fewer sales in the higher price points, you're going to start to see that benchmark price begin to trend downward. And this is what I'm hitching my prediction on, that there will be fewer sales in the higher end and more sales on the lower end, putting more pressure on that benchmark price. Now, the caveat that we could potentially see is that a ton of Alberta money starts flooding into the province like we did in the boom years, and also that we see a massive drop in interest rates, neither of which are likely to happen. First, Alberta money won't be flowing here for a couple of reasons, but the number one reason I feel is that the restrictive nature of investing in this province. Successive provincial governments have made it almost unaffordable to invest here, from land transfer taxes to sunshine taxes to the restrictions of investing in rental properties like STR legislation and rental caps. The second reason is that interest rates won't be dropping anytime soon. Read the literature around GDP, job creation, inflation, and housing. None of it is positive, and decreasing the interest rates at this point or even into the latter half of this year is not going to make it any better. Okay, I know I sound like a total downer in this video, but look, I am a realist. I don't pull any punches with my viewers or my clients. I was a part of multiple boom and bust cycles in Alberta, and what I am seeing for the Okanagan is based on my experience and my interpretation of the historical data. The market right now is part of an 8-year historical cycle where we see a period of decline, volatility, balance, and then increases in pricing. And we're still in the decline phase. Volatility is coming and balance won't be here for a few years. So hold on to your hats. The good news is that those that bought here prior to 2020 will be doing just fine. If you bought like I did during the boom, you'll probably need to ride out the wave or get out of the surf altogether. Now, to answer the question, should I buy now or should I wait, or should I sell now or should I wait? Look, it really depends on the situation that you're in. If you have to buy, you're going to have to buy, right? Now, the thing is that you don't get what you don't ask for. There are discounts to be had out there. There are some great deals to be had on properties. You ultimately have to be realistic with your numbers. If the property is overpriced by 5 or 10 or 15%, the chance that you're going to wind up getting that property for where it needs to sell at is pretty low, because ultimately the seller's expectations are completely out of reach. Now, from the sell side, listen, you have to be more realistic with your pricing. It is no longer 21, 22, or even 2023. Prices need to correct. And like I said, we're not going to see massive corrections, massive sell-offs in the market. But what we are going to see, hopefully, are sellers being more realistic with their pricing as opposed to those 3 previous years. So if you are looking at selling, listen to the data, listen to the market, and adjust accordingly. All right, enough of the doom and gloom. If you're thinking about making a move into or out of BC or back to Alberta or Ontario or Saskatchewan, then we should talk. You can always reach out to me on my cell and hit me with a phone call or a text at 403-827-7527, or you can always email me at info@livelovekelowna.ca. All right, we'll see you on the next video.